This is a quick video to show you how to use the structural elements to create a small commercial project. It's kind of also a tie-in to working with plumbing, HVAC, and electrical in the next course. But I will post all of the introduction videos for you to get started with and working with those additional systems. When you start a brand new drawing, you want to use the architectural template. The construction template is good, but it has a lot in it, a lot of extra things. And these other templates are going to have settings for those specific things. So if you start by using an architectural template, or if you come over here and you go to new project, and then you have this list of templates, you can pick browse to browse through other templates that you can use, but they're just going to kind of set up your project for that type of drawing. So for instance, the mechanical template would set it up so that the walls are going to be lighter than the ductwork and things that you're going to be working with. The residential template is pretty good. It does have a lot of the residential type of families in it, but if you start with the architectural template, you can always load those families that you need. So I'm going to start with the architectural template. It kind of gives us kind of a cleaner slate with only a few levels to work with, but at least you do have some choices. And if you watch the videos about the mechanical systems, you'll see that you can bring in those settings so that one of your views takes on those mechanical settings. So here, let's start on level 1 by creating a grid. So over in the architecture tab at the top right, click on grid. And notice here when you pick a point at the bottom left corner and pull your mouse up and click, you created a bubble. So it's up to you if you want to just keep creating more bubbles. Here you can copy this one over several times with a specific offset. There are several ways to work with this. We'll just go ahead and create here a base of 20 feet. So if you rest your pointer at the bottom of this grid and come across here to 20 and click, you can pull your mouse up until it gets to the top and click, and you've got a second one. You can see already that once you've placed these, you will be able to change them. I'm going to go ahead and put here 4 column bubbles. We're just going to keep this simple. I can come across from left to right to create the horizontal grid pattern. You can set up the 20-foot grids here, but there are other ways of creating these bubbles. So we can change these bubbles depending on what project that you're working with to numbers at the top. I think this is more typical of what I've seen in all the hundreds of projects that I've worked with since the early 80s. And, there are office standards that are different, but here I'm going to go with the A, B, C coming down on this side. Some companies like to have the bubbles on both sides. And you can see if you select one of these column grids, you can put a check mark right here in this little box to put it on both sides or take it out of one side or the other. I've always liked to have them on the right side because the set gets stapled on the left side. So once you have these, you can pull them in a little bit more if you need to, or out as we start to create these. All right, so before we place our columns, we need to load them. So let's go to insert and pick load family. And under load family, I have this set up as thumbnail views, but I think yours might be on detail views over here at the top right. Either way, as you scroll down, you see all these different structural things that you can load. Excuse me, go ahead and double click on structural columns. And then since we're going to load a steel column, we'll double click on steel. If you have a wood post or something, that would be for your residential deck or something. That would be in here under wood. So under steel, we have kind of a type of column so that we can select the type, and then you'll have a chart for all the different sizes. So in this project, I'm using the tube steel, which is HSS for hollow structural sections. Why don't we go ahead and double click on the hollow structural section, and you'll see that you have this chart of all of the different columns. The project that I'm working with here, I have a set of prints, is tube steel 8 by 8 by 3/8. I'm going to go ahead and pick OK. And while I'm here, I might as well click on Load Family and go get our framing. Go ahead and double click on structural framing. And if you look underneath here, steel, you'll see all of these smaller type of members that you can use, but the bar joists and the joist girders and things that you would use for a floor system are in here. Let me go back for a minute to show you that when you're working with trusses, and this is part of the video that I'm posting, is how to create your own truss. You can go down to here, structural trusses, and you see the differences. These are the huge pre-engineered type of Warren and Pratt trusses. So now I'm going to go back, because the one that we need for now is going to be under structural framing. So under the US Imperial folder, I'm going to go to structural framing and double click, and then I'm going to go to steel and double click. And here, the one that I'm using is the K series. It has the rods in it, and it's under the steel folder that I was talking to you about. It should be the K series with the rod here. There it is. So each one of these different joists has different span qualities. You can look through the books and see which one can span the furthest and has a different connection at the end. Some are made with rods as the members, the web members, and some with angles, just back-to-back angles. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this one that's the K series bar joist rod. And in here there are several types. The one that I'm using is 30K10. So 30K10 right there, 30K10. I'm going to go ahead and pick OK. So now that I have those loaded, I can go over to the structural tab and click on column. And I want to make sure when I'm using this column, there it is, the tube steel or the hollow structural section, that I change here in the options bar the depth to height. So I want to make sure I change that to height, and I want to make sure that this is going up to here, level 2. So now going up to level 2, I can pick at grids, and if I pick at grids, I can just hold my left mouse button down, drag it across all of these, and pick the green check mark, and see that the column will appear at all of the grids. Use your escape key to get out of that. If I click on the little house icon at the top left, you can see that you have all of your columns there. So going back to level 1, we're ready to now put the precast concrete panels or whatever we're going to use for the structure around it. The structure itself is away from the column. So the project that I'm working with, as an example, has 11 inches. between the column center and where the precast concrete panels start, the 6-inch panels. So what I'll do here is go to wall structure. In the same way, we're going to make sure that this is height, and change this to level 2. We'll change it later if we need to, but we also need to change the location line. Now the location line can be the finished face exterior, so you add the space between the column and whatever the structure is, and then add in the structure, or the finished face interior, which would be the interior of the wall. So I'll go with the exterior. Why not? Exterior. The core, it would be that structural element. That's that one layer inside the wall. It was in the wall video that we looked at a few modules back. So let's go ahead and pick finish face exterior and change the offset here to 11 inches. Make sure you type in the inches, because in AutoCAD, when you type in a number, it automatically goes to inches, but here in Revit, when you type in a number, it automatically goes to feet. Change the basic wall from generic 8-inch to this generic 6-inch, and notice what happens when you click the center of this corner column. When you pull your mouse down, you see how the wall is basically to my right, but as you're walking down that wall, as you're going in that direction, the wall is to your left. And if you see, it does make a difference if you go clockwise or counterclockwise. If I'm going counterclockwise, you see how the wall is underneath the grid line. So we'll have to go in this kind of clockwise pattern to click the next corner, come around and click all 4 of these corners, click, click, and back to the original. So now we can put a floor in here, maybe a 6-inch slab floor. So we'll go to floor structure, under structure tab, and we don't have a 6-inch here, so we'll have to pick edit type, and this happens often. So across the board with several other tools, we would be duplicating them. So pick duplicate and change this 12-inch to 6-inch in the name of the floor. I'm going to go ahead and pick OK. You could make it the concrete 6-inch slab or whatever. I'm going to go ahead and pick edit under structure, and it will put me into this kind of layering structure that you might have seen in the walls video that hopefully you watched. And here, this is where I'm going to change this floor to 6 inches. And there's that core I was talking to you about. We can actually insert other layers into this family, but right now we're going to make it a 6-inch slab. I'm going to go ahead and pick OK and OK. So I'm in the sketch mode of placing the slab. I can either pick walls or I can use a rectangle. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the rectangle and get in the inside corner of that top corner and the inside corner of the wall right here, so that it goes right up to the precast. And then I'll use my escape key a couple of times. The span of the floor does matter if you're using one of these other floors like the metal deck floor, because it wouldn't span possibly in this longer direction depending on the base. There's a lot that goes into the thinking of the structure, but I just wanted to show you as far as setting it up. These 2 lines right here indicate the span. So if I pick span direction and I click here on the vertical line, it's going to change the span direction, and later on when you cut a section or look at it with more detail instead of using a generic floor, you will see the difference. So here I'm just showing you that you can change the span. We can pick the green check mark and know that we have that, that floor system in place. When we look at the roof, we'll take a look at how to create indents so that it slopes, because this concrete slab wouldn't be flat. There would be places where it would drain. And so when we look at the roof, you can use the same concept here under the sub-elements and points to provide that kind of slope. All right, so let's go to the 3D view and take a look. We've got the columns, we've got the wall, we've got the floor slab in there. This being a precast, I'm kind of thinking about this detail here where the precast could come down on some kind of footing and the slab comes in and becomes thickened when it gets close to these outside columns. And we will put another here slab footing for this for these inside columns. But for now, what I'd like to do is extend this wall down 2 feet all the way around. So I can do it individually, but here's another tool. If you rest your pointer on one of the walls and then just press and let go of the tab key, it will create this kind of chain of objects that are the same, and then you can click. So once you click, you've got them all selected. Another way would just be to hold your control key down and select all 4 walls. Over in properties, we have a base constraint, which is level 1, but we want to change the base offset to a -2. If we change it to a -2 and pick apply, you'll see that that exterior precast panel goes down 2 feet beyond the slab. We can decide on what type of footing we'd like. It's in the foundation panel of the structural tab. There's something called wall. It shouldn't be called wall, I think, but if you rest your pointer on it, and it does show it in blue, it's actually part of the foundation and becomes that footing that goes underneath there. So if you click on this icon that says wall under structure, not wall over here, but the wall under the foundation panel, then you'll see that by default, this footing is going to be 36 by 12 inches. So if that's what you want, then use the default. But you know now that you could pick edit type, duplicate it, and change the settings, because you do have those dimensions right here that you can change those parameters. So now if I click on this wall, you see how it automatically puts it at the bottom. I can hold my shift key and the wheel of my mouse to orbit to the other side and kind of see that I'm clicking on the wall and it's automatically putting in there for me that footing all the way around. Kind of cool, I think. Okay, so now in the level 2 view, I should be able to pick on here beam and then have my W 12 by 26 or 14 by 26. You can use 12 by 26. And then pick on grids. For some reason it's giving me an error, but it's actually letting me do it. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the grids there, on grids. And then I'm going to select all the grids. So you can select everything. It should pick up all the grids. And when you pick finish, maybe you won't get this error. I'm getting an error. It's almost like it wants to make more of them. I'm going to pick delete type. See if you get an error. I'm going to use my escape key. Now you won't see them until you change at the bottom left corner the display here, detail level from coarse to fine. So when you change the display from coarse to fine, you can see those members. And keep that in mind for other structural members, because sometimes it will show as one line. If you want to see the elements themselves in a more detailed way, you can pick here fine, and then you'll be able to see the flange of the beam. So if I go to the 3D view, there they are. I did get an error, but I'm not quite sure what that error was. I had to look at it, and I don't see anything that reason that I would get that error. Okay, so let's go back to the level 2 view, and we'll do kind of the same thing, but this time we're going to create a beam system. So we'll pick beam system, and then right away when you put your pointer close to these bays, you'll see that these little dashed lines are showing up. First thing we want to do is change our beam type to that 30K10, so we can use that K series bar joist. And then the justification is center, but we get to decide on whether we want a specific distance between them or if we want a fixed number. So we're placing the K series, and I believe if we do a fixed number of 8 of them, that will divide the space up and give us here our spacing. So we can decide on selecting these bays automatically. And when you click on it, the steel automatically will be placed, the joists. So it makes it a little bit easier to place and to modify also. So now when I go to the 3D view, I have all of my members in place and ready. Now if you want to see through the structure, here I'm going to go to the bottom left corner under Visual Style and go to Graphic Display Options and change my transparency to about halfway and pick Apply. That way you can kind of see, you know, through and underneath it and see how everything is kind of developing. Okay, so you're learning the basics for your construction systems class, or if you decide to create in your studio class or at work, something like this. But keep in mind that this isn't a construction systems class. There are things in here that aren't working really well. Like for instance, I would have to drop this steel down in order for this bar joist to sit on top of it, and extend the top cord so that the seat length would extend to the precast. So it's not perfect, but as you start to work with details and specifically, you know, have the correct sizes, you can start to work with it. In any case, you know that you can just select it, look under properties, and change your start and your end offsets. And that's kind of how you get the slope when we're talking about being able to have this flat roof, which is never really flat, to pitch to the roof drains. So we have a start offset and an end offset so that it can pitch that way. All right, so now let's go to the level 2 view so that we can put a roof on this. We can go to roof by footprint, and we want to take the check mark out of define slope so that we can create a flat roof and change here our basic 12-inch roof to a 9-inch, and then we'll just use a rectangle use the rectangle. We'll click right in the corner here and over here in the corner, and we'll have to bring up the wall to be a little bit further up for the parapet at the top of the wall. So but this roof here is going to sit on those bar joists, and depending on the structure, you would have the metal decking and some insulation. So that's another thing that would depend on the detail that you have. Let's go ahead and pick the green check mark, and you have this roof over in the 3D view. You can see that it's a little bit higher there than the wall. So like we did before, we can rest our pointer on one of these walls, press and let go of the tab key, and then click. Or you could just use the control key to select all four. Over here in properties, we want to change the top offset of that wall. The parapet might be maybe 2 feet above the roof or more. If you type in 2 and pick apply, you'll see the roof is now lower, and the parapet is, or top of the roof, the wall, top of the wall is higher. We can change the transparency back by going to the bottom left here and picking graphic display options back to something a little bit thicker. So yeah, there we go. So you can kind of see that the structure is underneath. Just a couple of minor things I like to finish up with this small commercial project. If you select the roof, you have a choice of adding points at specific spots on the roof so that you can change the depression of it. To see if you rest your pointer on add points, you can take a look at the little diagram there to show you that you can use that, or you can use a split line. So the split line is basically a line that you would draw then on the roof to indicate where the valleys would be. I'm going to add a split line, and then here I might just put a line right here with these 2 columns right there. And then if you escape once, you can click on these little sub elements, they're called, and then change the number, something that would be appropriate to the slope of what you need, maybe a negative 1 inch. And if I do the same thing here, negative 1 inch, then it is another way of depressing the roof so that the water will slope down to that area. Okay, so if you wanted to get back to that, you'd have to select the roof and pick modify sub-elements in order to get to those again. Then the last thing is about the storefront openings that you can create for your commercial building. If you watched the walls video, which I'm hoping you did, you would know that you can double click on this wall and draw a rectangle in here and create an opening or whatever opening you'd like. But they did add these openings in the architecture tab, and one of them is wall. So you can click on here, wall, select this wall, and then hold your left mouse button down and drag your mouse across to create the opening. And you have an opening that you can now, using your escape key, get out of that mode. You can now change that opening with these blue grips and delete it, and the whole wall will reappear. So with this opening, we can now create this kind of glass in here that would be the curtain wall storefront type of glass. So we could do that for all 3 of them, or wherever you'd like in your design. You can even make the whole wall a curtain wall if you'd like, with all glass. And in the walls video, there is more information about those storefront walls too. So here I would go then to level 1 for this opening, and there it is. I would then create a wall, and that wall would then be either storefront, exterior glazing, or curtain wall. For this one, I think I'll go to curtain wall. When you use curtain wall, it's just really a thin piece of glass, and it's going to be a 20-foot high curtain wall. I could say that the top constraint, I'm going to change this, would be up to a level 2. I'll need to change it so that it can adjust to that wall. So I'm going to click here in the plan so I can place the length of it. Of course, you'll get a warning because you're creating a wall within a wall, but that's what we've been doing for the last 5 years or so, because now we can modify that, that glass by selecting it and pulling it down until it kind of clicks here to the opening. Because I used the curtain wall and not the storefront or the other one, this is just a sheet of glass. If I change my display to shaded, you can see that that's a glass sheet of glass. And so what we need to do then is to go under the architecture tab and pick curtain grid, and the curtain grid will allow us to decide on where these kind of cuts are going to be in that piece of glass. And even after we place them, using my escape key, I can click on it and use these little temporary dimensions, or I can just drag it to where I want it to go. And like I said, if you please watch the walls video, there are ways of taking these out and creating these really great panels. But now there are no mullions on this, but if I click on now the mullion icon, you can change the type of mullion, as long as you don't use a corner one or one of these other configurations. We want to stay within these types of the type of mullion, and you can always customize that too. I'll go with the 1-inch square or something like that. You can then click on all grids at the top and click right on that grid, and now you actually have there the mullions that you can see that divide up that glass. If you use your tab key, you can tab through until you find a panel and start to really change here the glass, and even some are solid. You could make them whatever you'd like, actually. Okay, so this video is starting to get a little long, so I already know that there's typography in the first section, first module. There is a section box. I'm going to put a check mark right here and pick apply. And the section box can be selected so that you can drag in those inside arrows right there and kind of crop this site typography so that it looks kind of more like a model. But you won't be able to turn the section model off, the section box off over here in properties. You'll have to type in VG and go to annotation categories, and down to here the section boxes, and take the check mark out and pick apply, and then that way you'll have this this kind of model looking project. We already changed the material also in that first section. When you create a section through our building section through this project, don't forget we'll need to change our display from coarse to fine. If you want to see more of the structure, you want to see more of the detailing that goes with it. I dropped this beam here down so yours won't look like that, but when you select one of these beams, you can already see that it has the height at the start, end, and at the start and the end of that beam, so that you can slope them as you start to work with structural systems a little bit more. There are some tools that you can use for line work that are also in the section video. One of those tools is called Thin Lines. Thin Lines will, in the View tab, will turn on and off those really thick lines that you may or may not want. And then on top of that, in the Modify tab, there's a tool here called Linework. If you click on Linework, which is in the View, the Modify tab in the View panel, you'll be able to change the line style to something like maybe hidden, or invisible. That would be even better, invisible lines, because this parapet is showing in the distance, and if you don't want it to show, you can select it, and because you're not changing the drawing itself, you're changing the view, just this view and how you're looking at it, you can start to select lines and make them thinner and wider, or medium, or hidden lines as you start to work with this section. Just because I'm here, I can show you that there is a tool here in the Modify tab to cope the steel. We have actually been working with structural systems, so why not show you this? It's about being able to cut back the flange so that the web member can extend to the other web member beam. It makes for a nice smooth transition and the connection that it would actually be. If you need to change the scale at the bottom left corner, this 1/8 inch looks a little big for the scale, I can make it a 1/4 inch, and you see how automatically the annotation will update. Then in the View tab, instead of using section like I did to create this building section, I can use call out. If you use call out rectangular, that call out will be, if I hold my left mouse button down and go all the way down, just as call out. You've maybe seen these before on construction drawings. They do here represent the wall section, and it's already created over here. You can pull this marker, the number and the sheet that it would be on, up by holding your left mouse button down on that little blue grip, so that you can get that out and in the corner there, and then double click on that call out so that you have this section that you can, wall section that you can use. This is the crop view and the crop region visible. So if you wanted to take the check mark out of crop region visible, then you wouldn't have that that box that will be there around your wall section. Sometimes we like to break the wall section up into different pieces so that they can be a detail instead of the whole wall, especially if it's too long. I've had quite a few of these smaller pieces. If you select one of these little break lines, you'll eliminate that middle piece so that you can pull these two together and have kind of like a break line there in the view. Okay, I think that this kind of gives you a bigger picture of how to create a small commercial building in a 16-week class condensed to 10 weeks. It's hard to lose those 6 weeks, so this is hopefully giving you the tools to use so that you can move forward in your other classes and at your intern or work or on different projects. So keep in touch with me after the class. I'm more than happy to help you out on any projects that you're working with next semester or whenever you get a chance to work with Revit. I'm going to post all of the videos so that the ones that we didn't get a chance to work with will be there for you to look at, to prepare for the next BIM course and to strengthen your skills with this tool.